Exercises. 1. Instead of asking how much exercise is needed to protect against depression, we should actually be asking how little. The short answer is that just 1 hour of brisk walking per week has been proven to give some level of protection. If you look into the research, what's striking is that in children as well as adults, those who have the most to gain are those who go from doing nothing to doing something. For example, starting to cycle to work or walk to school. But more than that is, of course, even better, and so one might wonder what level is needed for maximal effects. A number of major well-conducted studies suggest that between 2 and 6 hours of cardiovascular exercise per week is optimal. This is a wide range, but most studies lie closer to 2 hours than 6. More than 6 hours of exercise per week appears to offer no additional protection. Exercises. 2. Consistent individual differences in behavior within populations, also known as personality, are attracting the attention of many evolutionary biologists. One of the reasons why personality is interesting from an evolutionary perspective is that behaving in a consistent way across a variety of contexts or through time seems maladaptive. At some point, a mismatch between an individual's behavior and the optimal strategy for a given situation may be expected. For example, an individual that is consistently uninhibited and bold will at some point incur an elevated risk of predation. The optimal individual should be bold only when it makes sense to be bold and adjust its behavior when the situation changes. However, personality implies that individuals are limited in their behavioral plasticity. The individuals that are, for example, particularly active in the absence of predation risk are also those that are most active in the presence of predation risk. Exercises. 3. The rise in inequality is not the only cause for economic concern. Research by economist George Akerlof on the economics of identity has highlighted the importance of considering how people perceive themselves. In the standard economic model, the only point of working is to earn income to consume. But the economics of identity reminds us that many people's identity is centered around what they produce rather than what they consume. We are more likely to ask someone we've just met, "What do you do?" than "What do you buy?" So when the twin forces of technology and trade have taken away factory jobs in advanced nations, it's cold comfort to tell the struggling middle class that televisions are getting cheaper. The rise of populist politicians is partly a backlash against the loss of secure working-class jobs and a reminder of the importance of low unemployment to a stable society. Exercises. 4. We learn many stereotypes from the media rather than our personal experiences. Media offerings repeatedly present viewers with depictions of persons from all races and ethnicities, people living in poverty, and older adults that leave impressions of what they are like. Too often, these depictions devalue and reduce members belonging to these groups to a simple and single concept. Then, when we interact with persons from these social categories, stereotypes are triggered without our even being aware of it. These stereotypes generate in us an expectation of how a member of the group will behave. When we then act on those expectations, we precipitate a self-fulfilling prophecy. we see the behavior that confirms our expectation, whether or not it is actually present. Thus, if we assume someone is rude to us, they will appear rude, even when they act benevolently.